Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, retired NYPD Sergeant Bill Cannon, 27-year veteran of the NYPD. Folks, it's getting closer and closer to the first trial of this man, the man we know as Stephan Stern. And the first thing he's being charged with is, I'll use the abbreviation for it, the SA of this little girl, Jennifer Soto, a 13-year-old girl. And we all know the story, but we'll go more into the story later. But there's going to be first the SA trial, which is scheduled to take place this month, February 20th. And the charges in that case are so severe that he could potentially get life in prison upon being found guilty. Again, he's innocent till proven guilty. If he's found guilty in that case, he can get life in prison without parole. But the big case, of course, is the murder case, the death penalty case, the capital murder case, which is scheduled to take place on September 22nd of 2025. And this is the case that everyone wants to see this monster get the death penalty for. And whether you agree with the death penalty or not, I think you can't not agree with the fact that this monster deserves it for his actions. And he's doing everything to try not to get this penalty, charged with first-degree murder, Stephan Stern. And his lawyers are working overtime and trying to see all the loopholes they can use to spare this monster's life for taking the life of this young girl, Jennifer Soto. So, folks, hold on to your hats, hold on to your seats, hold on to your loved ones, hold on to your next-door neighbor, hold on to your service dog. You're about to enter true crime from a police perspective. You're about to enter the off-the-cuff zone, the police off-the-cuff zone.
There has to be some common sense.
They were the ones who called 911 to get him help, and now they're calling for change.
And now a word from our sponsor. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to the NHL and UFC, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. So tonight, I have two fantastic co-hosts, guests, whatever you want to call them. And the first one I'm going to introduce to you is retired NYPD Sergeant, professor at Albertus Magnus College in Connecticut, an attorney. Welcome to the show, Professor Mike Geary. Welcome, Mike.
Bill, good to see you. Thank you for having me on. Good evening.
It's always a pleasure, Mike. You're a big fan favorite. They like the cool calmness of the church-like background you have behind you. And, anyway, to the opposite of that, we have retired NYPD detective and straight out of Brooklyn. Welcome to the show, retired NYPD detective Phil Grimaldi. Welcome, Phil.
Thank you, Billy. Thank you for having me. So me and Mike, like good cop, bad cop, I guess.
Well, I don't know. That doesn't work a lot. You've been in enough interrogation rooms. It's the psychological technique you use to get a statement, right? So this is a death penalty case. Now, Stephan Stern's attorneys have filed a new motion to drop the death penalty in this murder case. And his attorneys have filed dozens of motions as the state and defense prepare for the trial. Stearns has been charged with first-degree murder in the death of 13-year-old Madeline Soto. The state is seeking the death penalty against him. A tentative trial date has been scheduled for September 2025. We have September 22nd, 2025. Among the motions, Stearns wants the death penalty removed as an option. He wants to be unshackled during hearings and trials and wants to use a real pen during the trial. I always sort of get a laugh when I watch trials and you see the defendant feverishly taking notes. Maybe if you took notes before you did these crimes, you would have had a job that didn't make you do these crimes. But it's just absolutely ridiculous. But anyway, his attorneys are doing their job and they're trying to get every possible advantage to their side, which is this, each one of these cases. The SA case, which is scheduled to take place in February of this year, February 22nd, is a potential life sentence case also. And of course, the death penalty case. So, Mike, I'm going to go to you first. What does all of this mean? I mean, first of all, did any hope of getting the prosecution to pull back on the death penalty?
Billy, on the first trial for the essay, for the pictures and images were found in his phone and I think on the hard drive. He should be unshackled. He should be allowed to have a pen and a piece of paper because, he is considered innocent until proven guilty. So I have no problem with that. He wants the death penalty off the table for the essay. Now, normally, under normal circumstances, the Supreme Court has ruled back in 2008 in a Louisiana case that, the death penalty would be cruel and unusual punishment unless the defendant had committed a crime, like a murder, not a sexual abuse of someone, essay of someone. However, in 2023, the Florida legislature passed the law allowing for the death penalty in an essay case. So he's going to be one of the first people who is going to be looking possibly at the death penalty for SA. I don't know where the judge is going to go with that because the judge could rule either follow Supreme Court precedent or just go with the wishes of the Florida legislature. We'll see. But that's the big one coming up first. After that, he's got a whole other slew of problems with the other case. But that's what he's looking at right now.
Absolutely. Phil, I know you happen to be a Catholic, and the Catholic Church has weighed in on the death penalty, actually. And even the Pope has said, the church is against it. That won't matter because if the state wants to go for the death penalty, they're going to go with or without the Catholic Church's 2 cents going in there. Your thoughts, Phil?
I respect the opinion of the Catholic Church, of the Pope, to say that they're against the death penalty. However, these death penalty offenses are so egregious, and I think the death penalty is made for this specific case. The things that went on with this poor young lady, this 13-year-old Madeline Soto, done by Stephan Stern, and even with some of the knowledge of the mom, Jennifer, I think that this case is exactly what legislation and law has been put forward to combat. We want to combat the most egregious of criminal activity when you institute the death penalty as a penalty on a criminal case where a person is convicted and now we have to mete out justice. So with that said, I do respect the Catholic Church. I'm a Roman Catholic. And however, I think that in certain cases, a person that commits these heinous acts, beginning with the SA case that's going to start very shortly, as well as the murder case, I have no problem with that person being put to death.
Phil, and my police experience, and you always hear from all the pundits, all the anti-death penalty people, they always say it's not a deterrent. But in all of the murderers that I've spoken to in my police career, they were terrified of death. And to me, when you mentioned a death penalty, when you said this is a federal case, you could get you saw their eyes, like
Absolutely.
the fear in their eyes. And so I don't know what it's become is because it takes so long. For example, if Stephan Stern goes to trial on the murder case, right, and that's going to happen in September, and say he's found guilty and the death penalty is instituted, it won't happen for 25 to 30 years because of the amount of appeals that are going to happen. So death row is a real thing. There's people on death row that have been there for 20, 25 years, and it's such a slow-moving system that it's almost like not worth it for the state to go for that. Mike, you're the expert on this.
Well, I think in some ways you're right, Billy, because I remember seeing a video when we talked with Matt Murphy from LA. He talked about the death penalty, and he said in LA County, where Orange County, where he was a prosecutor, they asked for the death penalty in only about 4% of the homicides, which is really low. So people who the death penalty is going to be imposed upon them, and they're in a capital murder case, they're going to claim it's arbitrary and capricious. Why am I being subject to the death penalty and 96% of the other people aren't? Why is that? And I do understand that. And it does make a lot more work for everybody concerned when you let the court know as a prosecutor you're looking for the death penalty, because there's going to be a generation, two decades worth of appeals. And in this kind of case, he's probably, if he's convicted in, say, September of this year, it might be 2050 by the time it would ever be used against him. So it's a real can of worms that is opened up by the prosecutor when they seek the death penalty. So quite often, in many other cases, they would just charge murder too and look for a plea bargain.
Absolutely. I want to play this from a local news station.
Stearns is trying to get out of facing the death penalty, and his attorneys want the public to be kept out of the courtroom for case hearings until the trial.
You'll recall Stearns charged with the murder, and that's of the 13-year-old daughter of his girlfriend, Jennifer Soto. And Channel 9's Nick Pampantona sorted through court records all day and found some interesting details. Nick, what is his attorney trying to get done here?
The judge has a ton of rulings dumped on him over the last week. An attorney told me it could be that Stephan Stern's team wanted to just submit them all at once, but it's probably more than that.
Yeah, they're really throwing a lot out there.
The number of filings impressing even the people who do it for a living. Attorneys for Stephan Stern's dropping more than 50 requests on the judge's desk since last Thursday, including requests to get rid of the death penalty, prevent the jury from seeing certain evidence, even disallowing the use of the word murder to describe the crime scene.
Using the word murder at trial implies criminal intent. Homicide is intent neutral, so it's just safer. It just means that somebody died.
Attorney Thomas Fighter said many of the 345 pages included routine asks, things he himself would request. Some of them less common, like a request to shut the public out of all future court proceedings until the trial begins to avoid tainting the jury.
To close us off from, what is a public forum would be difficult for the judge to do, but he can do it if the defense is able to demonstrate compelling circumstances.
But looking at the sheer number of motions, Fighter said it went beyond defense attorneys doing an A-plus job and trying to prevent Stearns from claiming ineffective counsel on appeal. He thought it could be a deliberate strategy, just as leadership at the prosecutor's office was turning over.
It could be that she knows that this office is understaffed at the moment. They've had a lot of turnover, so they're using this as a tactic to try to overwhelm the office into giving them a better plea deal.
The public defender in this case, Beth Borden, has 25 years of experience and a team of 4 or 5 working under her. Fighter called her one of the best in the Ninth Circuit. Greg.
So, we always... in our system, everyone wants Stephan Stern to get a fair trial, even though he deserves nothing. But you get a fair trial because that's our system. And he's innocent until proven guilty. But when we know the facts of this case, it's so horrific that people look at this like, they really want to see justice served. And during this whole case, we, covering this case, myself, Professor Mike, and Phil, we always thought that this woman on the screen the mom, Jennifer Soto, that she is so complicit in this case and should be charged also. But guess what? The attorney prosecuting this is not listening to us because they've made up their mind, apparently, not to charge her. And that, to me, is a little bit tough to take, Mike.
Yeah, it seems that she's there. She's going to be used by the prosecutor to set the stage a little bit, to, corroborate a few things, details. She will probably be given what they call use immunity, just for the things that she's asked directly. Any other evidence that they gather independently against her can be used in a future trial against her if they so choose. But she's going to get some limited immunity for being up on the stand. And she's got no choice. She's going to be subpoenaed and she'll testify. But it is disheartening after all we know and what we've learned that as of right now, there doesn't seem to be any intention of charging her. Maybe they will after these two trials are over. I can only keep my fingers crossed. But right now, it's disheartening.
Phil, your thoughts?
My thoughts. It's a tough case to swallow, obviously, and when you know that there is a participant that is not being criminally charged, that makes it even tougher. I think it's probably a strategic move by the prosecution, as Mike just stated, to get a person who has intimate knowledge of the crimes, specifically the SA, onto the stand to point the finger at Stephan Stern. And with that said, it looks like they want to dot their I's and cross their T's. We use that saying a lot when we talk about these cases. I think the prosecution is doing what they have to do with all of those motions, those 50 motions. I think that that's actually not a bad thing going forward with some type of an appeal. If you have all those motions and the judge answers each one of those motions and rules on them, and the ruling is not outlandish, it's a proper ruling based on the law, the appeal becomes that much harder. Again, when you talk about a death penalty case where sometimes it could go 10, 15, 20 years out before the death penalty is actually given, I think that the way that the criminal justice system works in this country, they want to make sure that we're not putting an innocent person to death. We know that beyond a reasonable doubt is the threshold that has to be met to find someone guilty. But when it's a death penalty case, I believe there are two phases at the end where the jury says, yes, we do want the death penalty instituted. And then the second phase is they have another hearing on it and they decide whether or not the threshold is met for the death penalty. So with all of that said, I think that everyone involved in the case is doing what they're supposed to do. Death penalty cases are very, very high threshold to meet. And I think that a lot of work goes into it. So hopefully, even though we have to swallow the fact that there could be a possible participant in this horrific crime that is not being charged criminally, however, it might make the case stronger against the person, Stephan Stern, that we believe actually committed the murder.
100%. Courtney, thank you for the $2.99 super sticker. Also, Dorothy Navarro, thank you so much for the $4.99 super sticker. Very much appreciated. The
Thank you.
support that our channel fans, subscribers, and friends give us. This is the request, the written request from his attorneys to appeal the death penalty.
Will violate Stephan Stern's right to a jury and due process of law. It is widely recognized that the process of selecting a jury in a case where the state is seeking the death penalty has an impact on diversity of the jury and jurors' attitudes. Jurors are excused either by cause challenge or peremptory challenge because of their opinions about the death penalty. Stern's lawyers also claim that the death penalty impacts the age and gender of the jurors selected. They write, men of all ages, with the exception of the youngest men, those approximately 20 to 30 years old, were more likely to choose the death penalty than were women. Young women in the age range of early 20s to late 30s were more likely to sentence the defendants to death than were older women. Stern's lawyers believe the reasons why the state is pursuing the death penalty against their client are unconstitutional. They write, the only possible motive for pursuing the death penalty in this case can be to skew the composition of the jury or coerce a plea. Both would be constitutionally impermissible. Stern also argues that seating a death qualified jury keeps the jury from representing a cross-section of the community and makes it less racially diverse. Research has established that a juror selected because he or she does not oppose the death penalty is more likely to be white. It quotes a paper as saying, African Americans as a class may be disproportionately excluded from jury service by virtue of the group's disproportionate view of the inappropriateness of capital punishment. Moreover, researchers categorize jurors in capital cases as demographically unique and that they tend to be both white and male. This disproportionate exclusion of Blacks appears to have a significant impact on the outcome of capital cases. Now, this isn't the only reason Stephan Stern wants the judge to strike the death penalty. He also makes a number of those arguments, but let's say he doesn't win any of them. Well, he's asking for separate juries for the first part of the trial, where the jury determines whether he's guilty or not guilty, and a second jury if he's convicted to determine whether he gets the death penalty or life in prison.
Mike, these are like just ridiculous, sort of. I think a lot of these requests that the judge surely is not going to allow all of these requests coming from the defense. It's a big wish list. And during the voir dire, they're going to pick jurors on the death penalty case that are death penalty eligible, that will vote for the death penalty. If you say you're against the death penalty, you're not going to be chosen for this jury.
Right, Billy, you know, they're zealously advocating for their client like they're supposed to. So they're doing their job. So, you know, no, I'm not going to hate on them for what they're doing, but they understand that it's not very, very few of those motions will be granted. And this sort of thing, no, the prosecution has the right. This has been decided by the United States Supreme Court many years ago. The prosecution has the right to be able to seat jurors that have the ability to vote for the death penalty and not exclude it, that they are willing to listen to at the penalty phase and consider the death penalty. Not that they're pro-death penalty in every single case, but that they're at least willing to consider that as a punishment, that they're not going to be excluded. So therefore, yeah, he's not going to get this sort of motion granted whatsoever. Some definitely will be granted, and I would be perfectly in favor, but not this one, not at all.
You know, when this video you're going to see, to me, it just says so much in the body language of both Jennifer Soto and Stephan Stern. And this is at the very point when they reported Madeline missing.
What's going on? So
I mean, just I guess when I look at her face here, and I don't mean to pick on mental illness, but she doesn't seem to have it all together here, and perhaps acts a little bit inappropriately when your 13-year-old daughter's been missing at this point for 8 or 10 hours. Let's watch it.
So my daughter was dropped off close to school this morning, but never made it.
The search for missing teenager Maddie Soto sadly turned into a homicide investigation. I take a look at everything we know about the case and when the man accused of taking her life is set to go on trial. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Maddie Soto's disappearance and what would end up being her murder has touched so many people. Maddie should still be here. She had just celebrated her 13th birthday in February with a party at her grandparents' home. The photos of her show a girl who appears to be happy, but we would later find out her life was filled with sadness. Kissimmee police would later reveal in investigative reports that Maddie was being sexually abused for years. Detectives would write that the abuse was taking place at the hands of a man that Maddie's mother, Jen Soto, was dating. His name, Stephan Stern. The allegations are disturbing. And at this point, Stephan Stern has pleaded not guilty to sexually abusing Maddie Soto and murdering her. Police said they found more than 1,700 images of Stearns molesting Maddie on a Google Drive connected to his cell phone.
Now, this was so disturbing when we first started covering this case. And I think we sort of knew our antennas were up. Phil, you and I know right away. We said, the boyfriend did it. You could see he did it. I mean, and we had no evidence of it, but we could just see his behavior. And then when we found out about this, it was horrific. And one of the things that, from a law enforcement perspective, it was sort of well, it's never a good thing, but they were able to hold him and arrest him right away while they worked on the murder case. And they begged him. They asked him, in an interview, please tell us where she is. Tell us you did it. So that, and we all saw the results of that. He's an absolute weasel. We saw his interview and his interrogation, but so heartbreaking. But again, Phil, from a law enforcement perspective, we knew he's going to prison for the SA charges, and that will give them more time to build a great case on the murder. Phil.
Bill, you noted the physical body language when we saw that video in the beginning, and if you look at it again, you'll see when he looks at the officer, he covers his face. Her appearance doesn't bear to be frantic. I mean, if God forbid my 13-year-old daughter hadn't been seen for a number of hours, 8, 9, 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it is, I would be frantic. I'd be searching. I'd be looking. I wouldn't be in the state that she was in when she's in the police station, when the officer says to her, what's going on? And she very calmly is stating, my daughter went to school and didn't return. So with that said, listen, Bill, you and I have been through stuff like this. We're going to zero in on someone that we think could be possibly in the trick bag for this crime. And we're going to try and either establish that they are or eliminate them from it. Because early on, we have a missing child, 13 years old. We need to work quickly with that. The fact that they were able to hold him right away, I think that was a good thing, like you said. And now they were begging him to give up the location of where the body was, so that way she could be properly, recovered and dealt with. And he just refused. So that shows a lack of remorse. And I believe that that type of a video will be played at his trial. And if he is convicted and sentenced to death, I believe that same video would be played at a sentencing hearing for the death penalty.
100%.
Okay. So she was supposed to be dropped off at school, didn't make it to school.
Didn't make it to school. I went to pick her up from school today,
Okay.
and she never came out. They announced it over the speaker, and I'm just like, maybe she walked here, because sometimes she'll walk here to this office.
Mm-hmm.
I came here, nothing. I went back to the school, they were closed. I got an email from the school saying she was absent, but I also messaged her teacher, and he looked at her entire attendance today and saw that she was completely not at school today either.
Okay.
So she never made it.
Okay. What's her?
So that was right when they reported her. And Mike, one of the things I wanted to say, eventually, the detectives are watching him. They're interviewing both of them. They're observing his behavior. The detectives knew right away, this guy's our suspect, And when the female detective, I don't have her name in front of me, she said to him, do you mind if I look through your phone? Right. And that was right on video, so it's recorded. And he says, yeah, sure. Because he wasn't stupid, but he thought he had factory reset his phone and erased all of the bad stuff that was on it, Mike. However, now his attorneys are saying that was an illegal search. Your thoughts, Mike?
Billy, again, they're not going to exclude the evidence based on, unreasonable search and seizure of his phone, search of his phone, a seizure of his phone. No way in hell. They got him orally agreeing to it twice. He signed a waiver. He can claim now, right before trial, that he didn't realize that he could say no. He didn't realize what the extent of the search was going to be, because when you waive a right, it has to be knowingly, voluntarily, and intelligently given. And he's going to claim that this was not a knowing, intelligent, voluntary waiver of his constitutional rights, because he didn't know that he had a constitutional right to actually say no. If he did, they would have gotten a search warrant. But at that point, they kind of knew. And as you say, you look at Jennifer's body language. She's got her hands in her pockets of her jacket. She's looking up, kind of like, I'm just kind of figuring out what I'm going to say. He didn't really look at the the police officer that much. He had his arms folded. He's not contributing anything whatsoever. I'm sure you and Phil have seen this a lot, way more than me.
Mike, can I stop you for one
Yeah.
second? And Phil will agree with me here. If I was that female detective and I asked him, may I look in your phone? And he said, yes. And then I go in his phone and I see horrific images. I would have stopped right then and got a search warrant.
Absolutely.
Right.
Because he can't argue what she saw up to the point of she looked at his phone and boom, now they got probable cause. Your Honor, I stopped because I was worried that I could be violating his rights if I continued to look at his phone. And that's why I now applied for a search warrant. And I hope she did that. And I'm sure she's a smart detective. I'm sure she did. Phil, your thoughts?
My thoughts are that, listen, when you're dealing with a case like this and you have the videotape of him turning over his phone voluntarily, he's giving permission to look at his phone. I think that there's absolutely no chance that the judge is going to rule against that, saying that it was an illegal search of his phone. And Bill, you hit the nail right on the head. The minute that you look into that phone and you see something of criminal nature, you stop and you say, I have probable cause to get a search warrant. You go to the district attorney's office, you get that search, and then you can continue on. So that way you don't recover fruits of the poisonous tree, as they say. You're not going to recover evidence that could be thrown out later on in court. So I think the detectives acted very, very professionally. They handle it the way they should. And I think at that point, when he factory reset his phone or whatever he did, that just really put him in the trick bag. They knew who their perpetrator was or someone that was hiding something. So he was looking really good as a suspect at that point.
Absolutely. Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff, real crime stories. If you like real crime, true crime from a police perspective, you're in the right place. And if you're not subscribed to us, just go on the screen, hit that button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell, hit the like button, share us with your friends and your family. And if you want to contribute to us financially, we have a Patreon with 4 different levels, and we also have a YouTube channel membership with 5 different levels. We appreciate all of our friends, our family, and our YouTube subscribers that enable us to bring you the content that we bring to you numerous times a month. I don't even know exactly how many shows we do, but we love doing this, and you enable us to keep doing it. This was the interview that sort of made this case semi-famous, and I want to play a little bit of it.
Was it night before? I think I did. I'm not sure. I took the trash out at some point, but I don't remember if it was the night before or it was the morning of. Yeah, sometimes we get trash bags piling up by the door to see them.
Is there like a common trash place, or like is there take their trash to?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that where you took the trash out?
Yeah.
Okay. You had her backpack. Presumably her school computer was in her backpack. And you described her wearing a green jacket, some kind of dark colored shorts, and white Crocs. Okay. Well, I can confidently tell you she did not go to school with her backpack.
How's that?
Because we found it in the trash. So, Stephan, here's what I'm asking you and pleading with you is to dig down and do some soul searching. Okay? You understand? Family's pleading with you. I'm pleading with you because this is that we need to find. And it's, as more time goes by, it's tough. I have kids, he's got kids. And this little girl's out there somewhere that we need to know where. And I really, really, really think you can help us. I mean, you want to get something off your chest. I don't know what it is, but I'm pleading with you.
I don't know. I don't.
What happened?
I dropped her off.
Where?
I dropped her off on the road to school. That was the last I saw her.
Now, you heard the detective tell Stearns that they found Maddie's.
This interview drives me crazy because I liked both of those detectives, but I felt they held back. They really held back too much.
100%.
And I felt that they should not have been playing Father Flanagan at that point. They should have been digging in and saying, listen, you piece of shit. We know what you did. You know, you want to be a man, you want to come across, you believe in God. They should have used those tacks. Being nice wasn't going to work with this guy. He's a weasel, you know? And what does he do right after this, Phil?
Yes, for an attorney.
That's right. He lawyers up. And I've had people in the chat say, oh, don't ever criticize someone. I will criticize someone that asks for an attorney. You're right. Should he have asked for an attorney? From the perspective, yes. But from law enforcement, I want him to be a man and say what he did, because it's clear he murdered this little girl. And we know what he did also with the essay before this. So no, this is from a police perspective. And if he could be a man for once in his life, she's laying out in the woods, dead. They already knew as they're interviewing him. They had video of him throwing her backpack in the garbage pail. They had video of him leaving the complex with her dead laying in the passenger seat. They had video of him coming back into the complex with her dead in the passenger seat. They had video of him at a hotel parking lot taking her dead body out of the passenger seat and throwing it in the trunk. This is who you're dealing with. And you guys are worried whether he gets an attorney or not? Mike.
Well, that's a tough follow-up. I mean, he is a savage, but as an attorney, I do understand that if I was his client, he was my client, I'd want him to ask for me. I hate to say it, but he should. They did not go on the attack, and you're right. But very interesting.
Real quick point. Mike, quick point. If you have nothing to hide, then why do you need an attorney? To me, it feels like the guilty are going to ask for an attorney. But I get your point, Mike. You're 100% right. He has the right to an attorney. But I forgive me for interrupting, but I just would have approached that interrogation much differently. I would have, like Bill said, it would have been time to say, gloves off. We know you did this because we have the video of you by the parking lot. We have the video of you throwing the backpack. Do you want to go to jail for the rest of your life or the death penalty? Give us the body. Work with us. You can show some remorse. You got to get into his head. You got to get in there. You got to get strong.
They could use that as a bargaining chip. Look, you give it up now, and the judge watches this. He may say, you know something? That's the only redeeming social factor that this guy has. Let's give him a break on the day. He's getting life without parole if he's found guilty, right? But now you see what he is. He is an absolute demon. He is an absolute piece of garbage.
Absolutely, Billy. And I just think they could have drilled down a little harder. Like you said, you're facing the needle. You want to die? Do you want to die? You think a jury's going to believe this after we have the video of you by the school? We have the video of you throwing out the backpack. We have the video of you taking her body out. We have a video of her in the backseat, lifeless. You throw a few of those things, you get his wheels spinning, make him think he's going to jail forever and he's going to be facing the needle. Give us the body. Let us know. Tell it. Get it off your chest. I think he was using that ploy. He's saying, I know you want to get something off your chest. I could see that you want to let something go. I like that part of it, but I just think that he was arms crossed and he was back. He was pulling himself out of the situation, and his arms crossed was showing he was trying to protect himself. Those detectives, and God forgive me for criticizing them. It's really not a criticism. They needed to move in a little closer. They needed to get right.
Look, I did a whole show on criticizing them. And the reason being, and again, I don't like to criticize them either, but why did they hold back all the evidence they had against them? Now you get one shot. Tell him everything you know about what he did. Tell him you have video of her dead in his car.
Right.
Tell him you saw him picking her up out of the passenger seat, throwing her in the trunk. What are you holding it for? Go at him. Hit him with a left. Hit him with a right. Hit him with everything you got, because you're only getting one shot.
Right. That's the key. You're getting he waived his rights. You're talking to him. He's speaking to you. And earlier we were kidding around when I said good cop, bad cop. But that needed to be two bad cops. That needed to be two very strong, hard interviews. And if you get to the point where he says, you know what, guys, I'm not saying anything further. I want an attorney. That's the result you wound up with anyway. I think it was worth the shot that you had to take the shot, go at him hard with everything that Billy just said. We have this, we have that, we have this. And you're facing the death penalty, scumbag. Excuse my language, but that's what you needed to do. You needed to get hard. All admissible. It's all allowed by law. You can curse, you could yell, you could scream. The only thing you can't do is create evidence, things of that nature. And obviously you can't get physical, but you could definitely get in his grill.
I just want to show a little bit more of this, and then we'll go to Professor Mike, because we need the kind of gentleman.
Here's where I'm going to be brutally honest with you. There's your phone. And I'm pretty sure you know what some of those pictures are about. You're a very intelligent person. And I don't want you to discredit yourself by saying you don't know about all the pictures that are on your phone. You understand what I'm saying? So do you want to add to the list of pictures?
No. Should I be talking with a lawyer?
Should I be talking to a lawyer? I just had to see that. I just had to listen and see that. Do I need an attorney now because I'm a dirtbag? You know,
The points I was trying to make is you would have been planting seeds in his head. All right, you know what? Maybe they're right. Maybe I could help myself. I could be facing the death penalty or life without parole. Let me give you know what I mean? They needed to plant those seeds and you know, and again, if they would have came up with the same result, at least it was worth a try.
Right. They gambled and they lost, but they didn't take the gamble here. They were too damn nice to him.
They were.
Professor Mike, I know you're cringing.
No, I look, as a uniformed officer, I was not a detective. I was a uniformed officer. So I didn't have to do, I didn't do these kind of interviews. So I'm not schooled in that. But as an attorney, I understand, what he's thinking and why he's thinking what he's thinking. And I understand him at that point saying, I need a lawyer, because he knew he was trapped. He knew that the not taking this resetting his phone did not work. They saw the photos. The jig is up on that. He needs an attorney, because the only thing he's got right now at that point, he knows the jig is up as far as the pictures. He doesn't know about the hard drive yet, because that's not going to come for a while. But he knows that all those pictures on his phone, like 660 of them or something like that, he knows that's over. And the only thing he's got is to try to figure out a way to stave them off for a while until he speaks to an attorney, because he knows that the only card he has, the only little card he can play out of the hand he has, is the fact that he's not going to say a word about the body, and he's hoping against hope that somewhere along the line, for some reason, they never find her body, or it is so disintegrated. And I hate to say that they don't get any forensic evidence from it. But at that point, and as he says, do you think I need an attorney? He knows it's over. It's totally over.
Right. But, I just also try to think of this of someone putting themselves in his position, right? He knows what he did.
Sure.
He absolutely knows everything he did. And does he think he's fooling anyone? Do you think I need an attorney? No, they already have all of these images that is going to get him life in prison. And then the second bite of the apple is a death penalty case. Do you think maybe strategy-wise, he might have said, something? I'm done, man. Maybe I should cooperate, and maybe that will get me off of the death penalty. And believe it or not, it may have worked. If he would have cooperated and said, all right, this is what I did, they may have said, something, let's take the death penalty off the table. he did give us her body. He didn't even give her that. He didn't even have the decency to do that. He's an absolute piece of shit, this guy.
Billy, I think that I would have saved the phone images as a last resort. I would have talked about all the video evidence because in his mind, he could be saying, well, maybe they're bluffing, maybe give out certain information with regard to it. So you know that he's not, so you would portray to him that you're not bluffing. You know that this happened, you know that happened. And once you take that phone from him and then you say about the images, that's what I think triggered him to ask for the attorney. So with that said, I would have tried to hold back on that as much as possible. And,
Phil, we spoke about this before. I wouldn't even have mentioned that. I would have went right for the murder. What are you mentioning? You got him on that. You don't need him to make a statement about that.
Yeah.
That was an error too.
Yeah.
No, leave that. You got him. He's nailed with that. You got
right. It's his phone and the images are there. Right. You're 100%.
Don't even mention that. No, you killed this little girl. That's what I would have focused on.
I would have been trying to get him to show remorse. I would have been kept saying it. You got to show remorse here. Listen, you did what you did. You're sick. I would have given him maybe threw some seeds at him for him to say, well, you know what? That sounds better than I did it. And I'm going to live with that. Yes, I'm sick. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to kill him.
Detectives say, let's pray together. Let's say you believe in God. Let's say a prayer together because you're in a bad situation right now. Let's pray for Maddie.
Absolutely.
Let's face your God right now. And something, you want to get something off your chest. You want to, I've seen confessions be gotten with that method, but instead I felt that and again, I hate criticizing them, but they were going after a murderer. Go for the murder. You already have him on that other case. Well, you're wasting your time with that.
My experience has been, every case and every individual is different, but knowing what I know, that they knew that they had the videos of the specific things that they talked about. I'm going in there real hard. And like you said, Billy, if you have to take a breath and say, listen, do you believe in God? You cut it back a little bit. Do you want to say a prayer for that poor little, the soul of this poor young lady, this 13-year? And you gotta figure out what your moves are going to be as the interview is going too, I think. And I think that maybe they felt they had the camera over their shoulder and that's why they were trying to go, Mr. Nice Guy way, I guess you could say. But I don't know, from watching it and knowing what I would have did, I'm getting like knots in my stomach that they didn't get him to admit it and give up that body. I really feel it was right there too. He was leaning back and he was crossing his arm, putting up his defense, typical body language. And I think that was the time once you saw him doing that. And then that, look, he was looking down. He wasn't really looking at them. Only on certain points, he looked up at them. That was the time you had to move in. You had to break that defense down.
And something, they needed to tag team him. And the other detective didn't say anything.
Yeah. He kind of stood in the background. You're right.
Yeah. And they needed, something. They needed to do a tag team, and they didn't do that. I want to go to a little bit because we have stated that we feel Jennifer Soto is complicit in this case. And I want to play a little bit of her interview, and you can decide how you feel.
She would sleep in the middle. I would sleep on this side. He would sleep on the other side. It wasn't until June that he got his own bedroom, and I sent him upstairs. That's where the requests for sleepover started.
Okay.
And I kept telling her no. I'm not comfortable with that. I think I can count on one hand how many times that's happened, and it hasn't been many times that I've allowed her to have a slumber party with him, to be alone in the bed with him.
Slumber party, she calls it. Besides first-degree murder, Stearns is now charged tonight with 60 counts of sexual battery, molestation, and child pornography. Here's a little bit of his police interview, and keep in mind this was done before Madeline's body was found.
Do you have any idea where she may be?
No.
None whatsoever. Okay. You want to?
Phil, you're 100% right. Look at his arms. It's a defensive strategy, right? And you know what?
Billy, he's back.
And you know what you might have do as an interviewer? Move your chair closer to him. Get right in his face.
I would
Get
tell him to
right-
move his chair up and
Let him
exactly.
smell your breath. Be that close.
Absolutely.
Be right in his face. Again, you can't physically hurt the guy. You can't touch him. You can't physically assault him, but let him feel your presence. Get right up on him. And the other detective, get closer too. Let him feel the arm of the law right in his face.
To get something off your chest. I don't know what it is, but I'm pleading with you.
I don't know. I dropped her off.
Where?
I dropped her off on the road to school. That was the last I saw her.
So, again, we watched that before, but, this is just apropos to show where we are where we were, how we got here. And this was a painful case to go through, First, Madeline Soto goes missing. And we all knew minute one, she wasn't missing. We all knew this was tragic right from the beginning when we saw Jennifer Soto and this big dirtbag, Stephan Stern, being interviewed by the news. We knew right there something horrific had happened to this little girl. And then as the days went by and he's trying to get rid of evidence and suppress evidence and destroy evidence and just so absolutely horrific. Schmitty, thank you so much for the $5 super sticker. We appreciate you very much. Absolutely. Also, I got another one. Cheryl F., thank you so much for the $6.99 super sticker. Very much appreciated. Guys, something, sometimes our passion comes out. We did this for a lot of years, and we've seen this before, and we've seen horrific murders. We've seen murders of babies. We've seen murders of little children. And I always would get emotional sometimes when my detectives were so good that they would go in there and not lose it. Use psychology to get this monster to confess, And I've seen them do it over and over and over again. And that's why they say the New York City detectives are the very best in the world. And they are. They are the very best in the world. But when I watch this, and no way do I want to criticize these guys. I just think that they had an opportunity to get him to confess, and they missed the opportunity. Professor Mike.
Yeah, Bill, as you said, they didn't go hard on him towards the end there. And they did hesitate. And you could see the detective who's asking all the questions with the back to the camera. He kind of hesitated. He didn't go in for the kill. He did that several times during the interview when they talk about the backpack. And he talked about drop earlier in the interview. I noted 3 times where he didn't go hard at it or when he had the opportunity to. And that was sad because you could have thrown him off balance by going in really hard at him, especially about once you realized that you had the video of him throwing out her the garbage and her backpack was in it. Interestingly, as he said, he asked, when did you throw out the garbage? And Stephan said, well, I'm not sure. It could have been last night, or could have been that night, or could have been the morning. And the reason for that, probably, I'm thinking, is that he did it very early in the morning before the sun came up, because he probably had already unalived Madeline at that point. But usually if you take out the garbage in the morning, the sun's coming up, and he couldn't even tell them. He had no idea what time it was, because it was probably somewhere in the middle of the night. He didn't know if it was before midnight or after midnight. But unfortunately, yeah, they lost that opportunity. But even with what they did, he still had the opportunity to make a deal possibly with the prosecutor, because after he could talk to his attorney, the attorney might say, look, I'll go to the district attorney's office. We'll see if we could bargain, give up the location of Madeline's body to take the death penalty off the table. But they never got to that point. Luckily for everyone concerned, a motorist happened to be driving by, recognized Stephan Stern's picture from the news report, and told the police on a tip hotline, where he had seen that guy on the side of the road changing what seemed to be a flat tire in his car on that kind of isolated stretch of road, and so that broke the case open for finding her body. So that was a good thing.
100%. Moni, thank you so much for the $10 super sticker. Much appreciated. You guys are amazing. Justice for Sweet Maddie. You bet.
Yes.
You bet. Justice for Sweet Maddie. And and again, I just want to show a little bit more of Jennifer Soto, because it's just, to me, when they say, "Oh, we have no intention of charging her," I just can't get over watching some of this. And this detective was excellent.
Still in the middle of training. Sunday in the middle of training. I couldn't miss to go to her birthday party. So I went to work. I was with my family all day. She had the best day. She was so happy when I got home and I saw her. At my house around 8:30 that night. I wasn't home. She got dropped off alone. About 10 to 15 minutes later, Stephan showed up.
Now, this interview with Jen Soto is 3 hours long. Jen Soto said she arrived home around 10:30 that Sunday night.
I realized I forgot to take my meds, and I said, "You guys, I need a good night's sleep. I need to take my meds." I sent them to sleep upstairs in the guest bedroom so that I could get a good night's sleep.
That, I think, when we all heard that just made everyone that watches this show, that followed this case, say, "Oh my God, she let her 13-year-old daughter sleep in the bed with this 37-year-old predator so she could get a good night's sleep."
Speechless, Billy. Speechless. It leaves you speechless. Unfortunately, I don't have words for that. It's exactly what you said. Red flags were waving when those words came out of her mouth. Like, how could you do such a thing? And we know that we found out later that she had knowledge of SA that was going on. So just a terrible, terrible thing. The way that that interview was being conducted, again, it was 2-on-1. I just want to point out, in the first interview with Stephan, I liked the way that the room was situated. It would be situated the way I would want it to be. I don't want any abstractions or distractions in the room. I think, like you said, Billy, the other investigator probably could have taken a more approach,
more active. He should have been more active.
He should have been, I guess active is the right word. Yes, but a little bit more. He should have been into it a little bit more. He should have been a little bit more aggressive was the word I was looking for. He should have taken a more aggressive approach in that. And I think with the two of them playing off each other with the questioning, we may have ended up with a different result. I am certain that if those detectives had the second opportunity to do it over again, they probably would do it a lot differently. But either way, we do have
Phil, you know what? I just want
to
say one thing. Had I been watching this as a boss, I may have stopped it, and I would ask them both to come out, and that's fine. Let them stew a little.
Yeah,
bit. Let the pot keep stewing, and say, "Look, I think you
ramp it up a little bit."
Yeah, I think you guys got to ramp this up a little bit, because he's this close to lawyering up, and you got to get in his face. You got to go after it, And I've also had cases where I said, "Listen, I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to pull you out. I'm going to put so-and-so in. Do you mind?" I just think that it doesn't seem to me like you're going to get it. And sometimes, I might hurt the guy's feelings, but I've had other detectives go in there that were just the right type for the guy they were interviewing, and boom, this guy comes in, different personality, and he gets the confession.
Absolutely.
I just could see that they were not going to get it. So if a boss was watching that from the mirror outside, something, let me stop it right now. There's times, Phil, you'll stop an interrogation, take 10 minutes, take 15 minutes, let him stew, let him live with what's in his head. And let's Let's shake that head up once we go back in there.
That's a great thing to do, a great technique. You throw a lot at him, you come out of the room, and now he starts thinking, wow, what do they really have on me? And now maybe he's thinking of other things. He may commit more lies. So, and when you have him in a lie, that's when you pounce. When you know that you're on solid ground, you're lying. You're going to jail for the rest of your life. You get in their face. That's the technique that I would take. Bill, I'm going to point out a case from we're very familiar with, the Mafia Cops case. The lynch point of that case was with two investigators, Bureau Chief Joe Ponzi, who, rest in peace, who was now deceased, went in with a federal officer to debrief Burton Kaplan for the umpteenth time. He walked in the room, the two of them walked in the room, and he says, I'll talk to you, Joe, but I'm sick of this guy. And the other guy went out of the room, without no problem. He talked to him, Joe, and he stepped out of the room. It turns out that Joe got him to give up one of the biggest corruption scandals in the NYPD history, where two detectives were killing people for the mob. So again, I don't think anyone, I'd rather have a little hurt feelings than have a person escape justice or walk away from a murder, So it happens. You're not the right guy. It's just not happening. The chemistry ain't there. Let's put somebody else in, and boom, you get the confession.
Absolutely. A little more of Jennifer Soto.
Suggested that we all sleep together in the same bed together, but not the easiest person to sleep with. She rolls around, she punches, she kicks. We have a king size bed, and she typically sleeps on one side, and she'll end up on my side when we wake up.
Okay.
So I asked her, I'm like, no, please, I need a good night's sleep. If you guys can go upstairs and let me sleep. I had asked Stephan to take her to school in the morning.
Now, at one point, Jen Soto
I think that's where these detectives, and again, as Jeanette Levy said, this was a 3-hour interview with her. The detectives are stewing as they are hearing these admissions from Jennifer Soto. And they're just like, I don't know. I would imagine, if I had to predict, it's the prosecutor that decided not to charge her. And it makes his or her life easier to use her as a witness than to have to prosecute her. And I think that's probably what happened. Mike?
Yeah, Bill, look, there's no problem with the statute of limitations for either the essay in this case or for the homicide in this case. Poor Maddie. So Jennifer is going to be on the hot seat. She's going to have a little bit of immunity just for the questions that are asked. She's not going to get, blanket immunity on everything that happened. But if anything further comes out about what she knew and what she did, she could be charged. Now, the thing is, the sad part is one of the sad things in this case is poor Maddie didn't even really have her own bedroom. She had a sectioned off area of the living room that was a common area for everybody who was renting a room in Jennifer's house. And so therefore, Jennifer, and she didn't like sleeping there. And she always, a lot of times, Maddie wanted to sleep with the mother in her bedroom. But in this particular night, she wanted to, she said she wanted a good night's sleep. So she asked Maddie, instead of having her sleep outside in the living room, she knew Maddie would want to creep into her bed. She just said, okay, you two go to bed and let me have a good night's sleep. And I think as you're talking, as you're saying, you're observing the officer who's kind of like leaning forward a little bit, his mind is racing at this point because he can't believe what he's hearing. So if there's anything they could get her on, anything more than what they already have, she may still be charged. So she's not completely out of the woods at all.
Absolutely.
Bill, you have to, as an investigator, you hear something like that coming from the mother of a little girl that's dead. You have to hide that. You have to keep that inside because you want as much information in that interview as possible. So if you show that you're objecting to what she's telling you or that it's upsetting you, you might shut it down. So you'd have to be really stone-faced and cold-faced and just let it flow and hold it, get as much information. And maybe at some point you might want to switch gears after you have all the information and say, how could you do such a thing, to try and get her into some type of a statement. But yeah, as a trained professional investigator, you cannot allow yourself to show your disdain for what's being told to you. And even with Stephan Stern's, I would try to, as much as I'd want to put my hands around his throat based on what I know, I would have to keep myself calm and professional, maybe, and ramp it up a little bit and get a little aggressive. But I'm not going to, when the things start to come out of his mouth, I'm not going to show anger. I'm not going to show, that I'm outraged, because I want him to cooperate with me as much as I can.
Absolutely. Jonna Burnham, we started the show with that. We talked about the defense attorney and all of the motions that they had drawn up, and we built to this not discussing the entire case, but going to certain areas of the case to show where this case was. But it's sort of, when you know all about this case and now you know the motions that the defense is going for, it sort of gets you a little bit like, oh, really?
But they're status quo, Bill. I don't think there's anything really irregular there. I mean, most cases, you have serial killers that go on trial and they're not handcuffed or they're not shackled. And the fact that he's going to, wants to be allowed to use a pen or a pencil, that's what the court officers are there for. And they obviously will increase the amount of manpower in a courtroom when you have someone like him that's facing a death penalty. And if he does get the opportunity to have a pen. So I just think that those things, to me, they're kind of status quo. It also is going to preclude down the line, when you have appeals process going, these things are going to be hammered out before the case even goes to trial. They're ruled on as long as they're proper. It makes it a lot easier for appeal to be denied.
Absolutely. Mike, we're at that point. Your final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I think as hard as this case is to talk about, it's going to be even worse in September for the second trial. But everybody should just think about, poor Maddie, say a prayer for her, and also hope for justice for Maddie and for everyone in this case. And just realize that even if there's no death penalty for Stephan Stern, he's never, ever, ever going to get out of prison ever. So he'll hopefully die in prison.
100%. Phil, your final thoughts.
Thoughts and prayers for that beautiful little girl that went through just hell. May she rest in peace. That picture of that beautiful little girl. God bless her soul, and may she rest in peace. With regard to the investigation, I got to give law enforcement a big thumbs up. They did a great job here. I just feel that I would have did the interview a little bit differently. I don't want to criticize those detectives that were doing that interview. Perhaps they hadn't did a whole lot of interviews with regard to murders. I don't know, but I just would have, and I think Bill agrees with me as well as Mike, maybe taken a different approach on that. So it wasn't really a criticism. It was just the way I or Bill or Mike might have done things a little differently. Again, thoughts and prayers for little Maddie.
Absolutely. Folks, we covered this case right from the beginning, and maybe that's why we do get a little emotional with this case. But I'm a little baffled, and again, it almost sounds like beating a dead horse that Jennifer Soto is not being charged, and I think she should be charged. And we've said that numerous times on this show. So we're going to keep following this case as it goes to trial, 2 trials. I think they're going to find him quickly guilty in the first trial, and if anything, the second trial is going to be more difficult because it is a death penalty case. And Phil said earlier that we think the police here did a fantastic job. I think they did an amazing job with collecting the evidence, the interviews, the interrogation. Overall, they did a fantastic job, and it's easy to be from the outside looking in and criticize because we didn't work this case, but overall, they did a fantastic job, and let's hope and pray justice for Madeline Soto. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Have a great rest of your night. God bless, and we'll see you next time.
Stay safe, everyone.
One episode just ain't enough.